Well, good morning, everybody. It's the next day after we retorqued that head. So I got the crankcase opened up on it. I went in there with short wrenches. All the lines appear to be tight, which I was positive they were. I'm not sure whether or not this oil pressure gauge is right, or whether or not that oil pressure bypass is tightened up correctly. So anyway, I'm going to do a little bit of adjustment on that and probably start this a couple of times, and we'll see if we can improve it. Right now, it's right about just below the M, and I'd like to get it just above the M. It doesn't have to be high, but somewhere's up above it instead of below it. Because if you run this thing for 3 or 4 hours, eventually it might get down to the low if it's not up where it belongs. Although it didn't seem to matter whether it was idling or full throttle. It was staying the same yesterday, so I think it's the bypass. So I'm going to do some adjusting. It's just a simple ratchet. Loosen up that lock nut and take a screwdriver to it. So I'll be back in a minute. So I just started this up. It's got no exhaust on it, so it's pretty loud. But it's supposed to have 10 or 15 pounds of oil pressure. I put a secondary gauge on it. So the oil pressure is right where it should be. The other gauge, gotta let this air out a little bit. Whew. Yeah, the other gauge shows that it was. I actually went down about a half a turn on the pressure relief. So we'll see how much of a difference that made. I'll put it back on the other gauge. Before it was just below the M on medium. I did some reading in the book. 15 is the maximum, and that was running about 16. It's close enough. It probably was right where it was supposed to be anyway, but and I didn't look in one of the IT shop manuals. I was looking in the genuine John Deere one. Matter of fact, I'll shut you off here and I'll find it and I'll show it to you. So this book here is courtesy of Paul and my friend. He had this book, and he also has a YouTube channel that he puts occasional stuff on, mainly Pine Woodworks. But yeah, it says right there, John Deere B Model B tractors, between 10 and 15 pounds of oil pressure. So that's all they're supposed to run. It doesn't matter which serial number brake it is. They run 10 to 15 pounds. And of course, on the later style, it's an external. And on the early ones, like this one here, it's got the one inside on top of the oil filter housing. So anyway, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I was suspect of the gauge. I still am a little bit. I'm going to hook it back up to the gauge, and we're going to start it again and see what the gauge says. If that's if 15 is on the high end, then theoretically, if I'm 16, I should be over on the high. That's the way I look at it. So I got to hook this up, see where it is. Probably will buy a new gauge because I'd say my gauge is off. But anyway, I'll bring it back in a little bit. So I've got everything hooked back up. I went in and made sure that the oil bypass jam nut was tight. And this is all tightened back down. I'm going to start it up one more time. Now this should be a 10 to 15 pound gauge. Theoretically, I would think that 10 would be at the low and 15 would be at the high if it's a 10 to 15 pound gauge. I don't really know how these work, but I'm going to start it, and if I don't get anything above medium, I'm going to get me a new gauge and see if that's the problem, because I know I got pressure. Yeah, I think that gauge should be reading higher. I don't know if I've got one of those 15 to 25 pound gauges on something that should have a 10 to 15. I'm going to get a different gauge anyway and change that out. And today, probably this evening, I'm not going to show it, but I'm going to put those front grills back on. We'll get this thing tidied up. I'm not going to put the cultivators on it because, you know, you really ought to work something to break the rings in. I'm a firm believer in that. So I'm going to take it out and probably do some harrowing with it in a couple of weeks. And there ain't any sense to have all that hardware on it. But then again, you can pull a set of harrows with cultivators on too. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, I'm not sure whether I'll put them on or not. I might change my mind. You know how that is. But anyway, it runs good. I got 15, 16 pounds of oil pressure. And the only thing I've got, which these damned kits come with junk seals on that nut right there, which bugs the shit out of me. You can see that's just dripping. I gotta get me a wrench, see if I can tighten that up just a skosh. You can't pull them very hard or you'll break the threads. You know, there's not much on those. So I gotta go see if I can get another 1/16 of a turn or maybe even less, just enough to stop it. I got a copper gasket in there right now. I got a good mind to buy me some Teflon and turn some Teflon seals out. And I may do that anyway. You know, you make a Teflon seal and it'll seal. So anyway, just a quick update, everybody. Steiner came today, brought the exhaust pipe. It fits, which is good. Got the front tin work onto it. The medallion's on. So the only thing I have left to do to this old girl is put that other tire on. Do that tomorrow morning, I hope. And run around it with a grease gun. And this old girl is good for the year. Probably will after I break the engine in. Probably, I'm going to do the harrowing this year with it. Just because I want to work it for a while. Probably after I get done the harrowing and stuff, which will probably give me about 8 hours on it of good hard work. I'll change the oil then, and she'll be considered done after that. Anyway, see you on the next one.